Hello once again. And this time I'm doing what many people have asked me to do. You wanted videos talking about how I approach each matchup. And what could be a better start for this series of videos than talking about Living End, a deck that came back from the dead, let's say, even though it was never too dead, in my opinion. It was always around, but it was not too powerful. The unban of Violent Outburst reinvigorated the deck and placed it again among the top tier decks of the format. So, let's talk about Living End to start with. What changed in that deck? The first most obvious change is actually the drop of black, and they swapped from black to red again. This gave them the ability of casting Violent Outburst again. That's the card that got unbanned, and instead Cascade, as anyone should know, is very, very powerful. The creatures you control get +1/+0 is not that relevant, but it's actually pretty good when you're attacking and you're missing the lethal damage. The drop of black technically means that they had to give up on their Overload of Baleberg and their Deceit. Those were two cards that helped them a lot against mid-range matchups, as it gave to the deck a more mid-range approach. What again, though, it was a very powerful card in my opinion, which is Oliphant. It's a trampler that can also give +2 and +2 and trample until the end of the turn to another target creature. This is actually very powerful, and I believe it was a huge upgrade. It made the deck more aggressive and smaller living ends stronger. The addition of red actually gave them access to a very, very known card to any elf player, which is Brotherhood's End. It's a mass removal at 3 mana that deals 3 damage to every creature. Obviously, their creatures do not die, in contrary to elves, which they definitely die if you do 3 damage to every creature. I consider Living End to be a good matchup for elves, especially Devoted Elves, in contrary to any other version of elves that does not play white and doesn't have Devoted Druids. White gives you access to Hatebus in the sideboard, and Devoted Druid is a lovely card that has the -1/-1 counter ability, which you don't need to have a Devoted Druid without summoning Sickness to do. This allows you to put Devoted Druid in the graveyard with a Living End on the stack. This is priceless. Apart from that, the main can also play, and I am actually playing Vexing Bauble, which is very good against Cascade decks, as well as we also know Solitude, but in this case we only care about Cascade decks because it doesn't allow them to cast Living End for free. Side note, this also goes for Crashing Footfalls because they cannot cast the Rhinos when they cascade into it. Apart from Vexing Bauble, we also run 2 main deck, Agatha Soul Cauldron, which it's mainly as a hate card for hate card. It's a mid-range card, but it also acts like a mild graveyard hate. It's not very effective because you can only take 1 card each turn, but it's still very good. You can take away from the graveyard the most powerful creature, for example, an Oliphant or a Flyer. The rest you can block if needed. And of course, let's not forget my flex slot, which is Endurance, a card that has many utilities. And in this case, it does what exactly it needs to do. It takes away all the opponent's graveyard. Always be careful though. When you have a Vexing Bauble on the battlefield, you cannot cast an Endurance without paying mana for it. And I'm saying that, and I'm the first one to say that I'm guilty of doing it and actually goofing up some games. Okay, so how do I approach the matchup? Pre-board, most of the time, especially when I'm playing online, you don't know what you're facing. So it's not like you can keep specific hands. If you have an opening with a Devoted Druid in hand, you're in a very good spot. Because, as I said before, you can put the Devoted Druid in the graveyard and it can come back. Pre-board, I'm trying to go as soon as possible. I won't stay back to play around Subtlety, Force of Negation, or even Endurance, which can take away my Nature's Rhythm if I have it in the graveyard. I treat the matchup as a race, and I'm going all in. If I have Devoted Druid, I'm pretty good. If I have Priest of Titania, it's not as good, so I'm trying to empty my hand as fast as possible. So if I have a Kieran Ranger and a Priest of Titania, I'm in a good spot, and I'm trying to go off, deal as much damage as possible. Because sometimes, if you deal enough damage to them, they cannot fetch for 3, and they cannot go off that easily. If you have a Yavimaya, as they are playing green, try not to give them green. If you can keep the Yavimaya in hand, try to keep it in hand, forcing them to fetch as aggressively as possible in order to go off. Because even one damage point might matter pre-sideboarding. Another card that's surprisingly decent against them is Lush Portico, my love and hate relationship, let's say. When I'm having when I'm playing against Living End, and I do have a fetch land, I try to time my Lush Portico, my crack fetch Lush Portico, at the right time in order to put in the graveyard, if possible, a relevant creature, a creature that I do want back on board if they resolve the Living End. These are the most important cards pre-board. We have Vexing Bauble, we have Agatha Soul Cauldron, Devoted Druid, Endurance, as well as Lush Portico. This is the only advice I can give you for pre-board. Sideboarding, though, things change. Post-board, I believe the matchup becomes even more favoured and very interesting to play. I'm always keeping in the combo of the deck. I'm not going to take away any of my Chord of Callings, my Nature's Rhythm, my Viziers, my Devoted Druids. This is the core of the deck. Obviously, my Azure is staying in because I can trample through there any defense. And War Master stays in because it's also a finisher. I prioritize Devoted Druid over Priest of Titania, as this is the one of the rarer cases and Priest is not good enough. The sideboard is designed not to lose to the deck, and we have a variety of hate for them that shuts down the deck from many different angles. First of all, we have Endurance. It's the most obvious card that completely takes away the graveyard. Apart from that, I'm also having a Disruptor Flute, which I can proactively cast in order to name, for example, Living End. Or if I'm trying to go off in that turn, I can proactively try to cast it in order to name, for example, Force of Negation, if I have a Nature's Rhythm in my hand and I'm trying to go off while they're tapped out. Last but not least, we have a little card here called Dranith Magistrate, which is the You Shall Not Cast It card. Dranith Magistrate shuts down any Cascade deck because it doesn't allow them to cast any cards anywhere else than their hands. This is priceless. Usually, to bring in those cards, I'm taking off 2 Eladamris and 1 Heritage Druid. I'm keeping 1 Heritage Druid in order to keep the speed of the deck, and it's not a mid-range matchup, so Eladamri is not needed, and it's not very often that I try to go off the top of the deck. Something worth mentioning is Sylvan Safekeeper. This card has to stay in the deck, not only because I might play Dismembers, but because it can also protect Dranith Magistrate as soon as it lands on the board and further on. They won't be able to sink to stupor any of your creatures or Colossal Sky Turtle anything. As we've seen, they do play in the sideboard Brotherhood's End. The thing is, I don't believe that you should bring in Heroic Intervention just for Brotherhood's End. If they want to put your creatures in the graveyard, so be it. It's okay. I mean, if they want to put them in the graveyard and then bring them back using Living End, so be it. You're not going to play around this card, and you don't want to dilute the deck too much because you're still trying to be a combo deck while interrupting their combo. Something very important and worth mentioning is you have to make sure if you see them cascading in the first game, try to check if they are playing white lands, meaning Hallowed Fountain or Temple Garden or any other white lands they might have. If they're playing white, I can guarantee you they're going to bring 3 of these babies post-board, Clarion Conqueror, and this is a game over for Elves. This is why when you're playing against a Temur, or as they call it, Living End deck, anything that splashes white and plays Living End is going to bring in Clarion Conquerors against you. It's going to be their way of beating you or trying to beat you when you're playing against them. So obviously, if you see white, you're sideboarding completely differently. If you see white, you're bringing 2 Paths of Exile, 1 Erode, and 1 Skyclave Apparition. Skyclave Apparition is in the deck just for Clarion Conqueror and for Teferi, mainly for Clarion Conqueror, because you're running Chords of Calling, and you can chord for it many times. This is also another reason why I'm not going down to 1 War Master, because a double War Master can almost bypass a Clarion Conqueror. On another side note, please be aware, because I've done it, that's why I'm mentioning it. If they have a Clarion Conqueror on the board, and you play a Sylvan Safekeeper, you cannot activate Sylvan Safekeeper's abilities. Been there, done that, got the medal, let's say. So, if you're going to bring in paths, roads, and all that for Clarion Conqueror, you're going to shave a little bit more of your deck. You might remove one of the viziers. You're going to remove the second Heritage Druid. You're not touching those War Masters, and you're not touching Court of Calling. Shave another Llanowar Elf, maybe a Priest of Titania, which isn't as good as this matchup, as I said, like Devoted Druid, and shave from those numbers. Formidable Speaker is another excellent card to have in the deck because you can play it, you can discard a card, and get your Skyclave Apparition and go on from there. Let's say that you don't have the cards that I have on paper, like Vexing Bauble, Cauldron, or maybe Dranith Magistrate. What else could you use if you're playing in a heavily living end meta? First of all, first card that comes to my head is Stonebraid. What's a better card against combo, apart from a combo killer? 4 mana, pretty much 2 to cast it and 2 to crack it. Always be careful because Stonebrain is a sorcery speed card. You're going to do it on instant speed. Take away the living ends and go on from there, and you will play a fair game after that. You can try some different artifact-based graveyard hate, for example, Soul Guide Lantern, Relic of Progenitus, or Ghost Vacuum. All these cards have the same problem like Agatha Cauldron for me. It's a one-off, and it can only take one card from the graveyard per time, so I'm not really a huge fan of it. Last but not least, we do have a Scavenging Ooze or a Keen-Eyed Curator. Cards that I have tried in the past, but because they need mana in order to be useful, you need to have leftover green mana or colorless mana, I realized that they're not as good as I would want them to be. Personally speaking, I wouldn't play Soulless Jailer in this version of Elves because I don't need to, because I have access to white. The reason for it is that Soulless Jailer shuts down half of Nature's Rhythm. You will not be able to cast Harmonize, meaning cast Nature's Rhythm from the graveyard when you have a Soulless Jailer. This is something that doesn't happen when you are playing Dranith Magistrate, because Dranith Magistrate is only for your opponents, whereas a Soulless Jailer is for everyone that's playing the game. Living It hasn't picked up as much yet as we expected it to. I do believe that the main reason for that is that the abundance of hate everyone's packing because they were very afraid of the deck as soon as Violent Outburst got unbanned. For now, the format is keeping the deck in check, and there are cards like Consign to Memory or Vexing Bauble that we are also playing. Brutescale is also playing. Every blue deck is packing their consigns, so we're keeping the deck in check. And maybe Wizards was right after all, even though I'm terrified of the card. And I do believe that they will eventually break the format. Living End is a deck that can play all 5 colors of Magic without any sweat. They can easily pack any color they wish. Therefore, let's say that they have access to the whole database of Magic cards that play Modern in order to figure out the solution to what they need to do. Therefore, I do believe that eventually they will find a way to break the format. But we'll be here in 1 or 2 months and see if Musa was right or wrong. If you stayed up until the end of this video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it and you want to read again or watch the video again, do keep in mind that in my free Patreon there will be an article regarding what I just talked about, as everything else that I do believe it's important for the deck in Modern. That's all for now. See you on the next one. Bye bye.